It's time for another history lesson. So behavior analysts, teachers, anyone using behavior analytic assessment, do you know the history of the commercially available assessments that we use in our field? Hi, I'm Dr. Megan, and I guide people in growing, learning, and cultivating connection and curiosity. And the thing we're really going to get curious about today is taking a look at how assessments are developed and used in the field of behavior analysis. So in the field of behavior analysis, we have quite a few assessments that are pretty commonly used. We have the VB-MAP, we have the ABLES-R, we have for some of the times more for older learners, we have AFLs, we have EFL. We love our abbreviations. And then we have some assessments that are newer or less known, like PEAK and the IGLR. And I do want to give a disclaimer. I am not saying that we shouldn't be using these materials to help guide what we're doing and that they didn't serve a purpose when they were first created. But I think it's important that we all accurately understand what the research is behind these assessments and what we're really doing when we use these assessments. And one important question to ask is, what did people use for assessing before these assessments existed? So the ABLES was initially published in the late 1990s, and then ABLES-R and VB-MAP came out in the early 2000s. So what were people doing before that? Well, when I first started in the field in the early 2000s, we weren't using any specific materials. There were replications of the work that Lovaas was doing through some of his books, like the Me book and A Work in Progress. And then there was the Catherine Maurice and Dr. Gina Green book on behavioral interventions. And a lot of people were using those materials to help guide choosing their programming, but there weren't specific, tracking like you have with the VB-MAP and the ABLES and the other assessments that have come out since then. So I'm trying to keep this short. I could talk about this for a really long time. The main point with looking at these assessments and the research behind them is, first, if you haven't, you should. You should understand the history of the assessments that you're using and why you're using those particular assessments. And you should also understand the research that exists right now on best outcomes for whatever population you're working with. And the best outcomes should be focused on what's socially valid, right? Not what fits someone into a neurotypical box and makes them indistinguishable from their peers, but what's meaningful and important to that person, what qualifies as a best outcome for that person. And I think you'll find when you start to dig in and ask questions about these assessments, why are these the skills that we're teaching? How are these skills determined? What are we doing here? That really it's just to create a situation where we are preparing clients to be in classrooms and be like their peers. You're also going to find that it doesn't really match with the current research, the longitudinal studies that have been done, and other research that exists for best outcomes. Like what skills do we need to be focusing on to help teach self-advocacy, to make safer environments for our clients? To be quite honest, none of the assessments that exist, like even some of my favorite, like Early Start Denver model and Jasper for naturalistic developmental behavioral interventions. Jasper's not specifically an assessment, it's more of a model. But anyway, they don't really touch on this either. However, they are at least working on skills that have been shown to promote this level of acquisition of skills that we could teach self-advocacy and we could create safer learning environments. So long story short, I really want to encourage everyone to just be really curious about the assessments that you're using. Think about why they're targeting the skills they're targeting, how you can adjust the process to be more affirming and honoring of the unique experience of your client, and really build those skills for your client that will align with giving them self-advocacy skills, assent, withdrawal skills, the types of skills that humans should have in order to exist in a safe environment. In future videos, I will dive on this in more detail, especially looking at strength-based assessment and how exactly we can really be promoting the skills of self-advocacy especially. So if this is of interest to you, please give me a follow.